Let's go.
Copy that.
Tonight is the night.
Talent's on the move.
Guys, have your tickets out.
Welcome to Comedy Central, the half hour. Put your hands together for Rachel Feinstein.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. It's good to be here. I just broke up with this guy recently. It's probably good. We would fight a lot. One of our big fights was he would get mad at me because I like to joke immediately after sex. I just feel like it's a good time for some jokes. I don't think there needs to be any gentle gazing period after sex. I don't like to do any soft gazing. I just feel like sex is done and now it's joke time. I like to throw change on a man after sex. That's very funny to me personally. I just like to take some coins and toss them on his dumb, naked, post-sex man body and say something like, shh, less is more out of you, okay? You take those coins and you keep your mouth shut about what's happened in this room, all right? Because what happened right here is disgusting, okay? You should go out and buy yourself something special because you're beautiful. I also like to pretend like the guy tricked me into the sex. Like the moment it's done, I'm just slowly realizing it's all been a big ruse. And I'm kind of obsessed with those old films from the 40s. So the moment sex is done, I like to be like, well, I don't understand what that all had to do with helping the children. You said if we did all them awful things, those children would get their cure for polio. It was all a lie, wasn't it? Those children are no better for the godless things I've done in this room, are they? It was a big lie, and now look at me laying here all covered in sin. I just feel like the right guy is gonna be like, hey, listen up, sugar tits. Those children never had a goddamn chance. They are mangled with polio as we speak. Now clean yourself up, for Christ's sake. I just went home to visit my parents. I don't know if anybody feels like this, but when I go home, I'm okay for maybe 6 minutes, and then I just feel weirdly furious. And then I feel guilty about the wild level of hostility that I'm feeling. I was talking to my friend about this. I'm like, do you ever get like that when you go home? And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, do you know what I realized? I realized if my mom wasn't my mom, I didn't even think I'd be friends with her, right? I'm like, really? That was your big realization? I'm like, obviously. That'd be very weird if you just had this intense relationship with some middle-aged diabetic woman in Pennsylvania. You would just go fly and see her on the weekends sometimes. And she would bother you about getting health insurance. And you'd be like, well, this was great, Sharon. Let's do it again in about 5 months. That's what I'm comfortable with. And next time when you're feeding me and I've told you repeatedly that I'm full, I'm gonna ask you to start respecting that, Sharon. My mom's just really embarrassing. Her newest thing she's doing is, well, she likes to talk to every stranger. She just likes to sort of stop people and have these kind of sassy moments with them. They're not having the moments with her. They're often listening to her with this sort of a stance. Like, we were out at this Latin restaurant. I felt so bad for the guy because I was like, he has no idea what's about to happen to him right now. Like my mom likes to just kind of, she likes to let people know that she's kind of down with everything, you know? So he comes over to our table. He says something so reasonable. I was like, he has no idea what's about to happen. He just told her that they were very slammed and that he needed a moment. Here's my mother's unacceptable response to that. She goes, oh, please, take your time. I lived in California in the 1960s. I'm like, what the does that mean? What in God's name just happened? She will not stop doing that California thing to people. I've begged her. No one knows what to do with that. It's so genuinely confusing for people. They just sort of look at her like they don't feel safe. I was an awkward kid, too. You know, there was this girl in my school, and I just wanted to be her. She just had everything perfect. I was a very slovenly child, and her name was Caitlin, and she had this, like, long, blonde, silky hair, and I wanted hair like hers. I had this strange, heinous, gnarled fro, and I got this piece of yellow yarn, and I just placed it over my head, and I would just go to school like that. I somehow thought I was fooling everyone into thinking I was a blonde with this one piece of loose string just tangled in my heinous nest hair. And I really wanted her name, so I went to the mall and I had this bracelet made that just said Caitlin, and I would wear it. It was very unstable. I would just wear her name and stare at her like, I'm Caitlin now. And Christ loves me very, very much. She was one of those girls. She was always all organized and did everything perfectly. You know, her pencil case was amazing. I'm still very angry about it. Her pencil case was incredible. It could do anything. Little Koreans would jump out and do cartwheels into the air. I'd borrow a pencil from her and she'd remember a few days later and ask about it. She was one of those girls, like, she really ran a tight ship. Like, she'd be like, I think on Monday morning in second period, you actually borrowed. I'm like, it's gone, bitch, it's gone. All right, I had a lot of Jaeger. I have no idea where it is right now, so I'm gonna ask you to let it go, okay? We finally became friends, and I would sleep at her place, and her parents would play those old 40s movies. I think that's why I like to play the after-sex polio game. Her parents would always play those old films from the 40s, and it seemed so interesting to me when I was a girl, because I was like, it seems so easy to be a woman when you watch those films. The women in those old films never had to do anything. They were just these wild morons. They were always lost in the woods, doing a lot of crawling, it seemed like. Like, they were so dumb, they sort of scared themselves. And the men would have to go find them, like they were some kind of like a pet that got away. They'd be like, don't you run off like that. You know that brain's not made for thinking. And they'd be like, oh, Johnny, well, it was real scary like out there. And I try to do all sorts of things on my own, Johnny, like have opinions, real opinions. And you weren't there to beat me with the opinion stick, Johnny. Oh, it's scary out here. I just want to go home and make cupcakes and giggle. I love giggling, Johnny. Oh, I'm scary out here. I'm very scared. Oh, Johnny, never leave that screen open again. That's how she gets out. She gets out through the screen. The same thing could happen to your women tonight. You have to be very careful. You need to fasten that screen, or they're going to escape and form opinions. If you don't fasten the screen, they will escape, and you'll have to find them and thrash them with the opinion stick. I also like that at that time, men would always order for women in restaurants. They actually believed that the women were probably too dumb to know what their own stomachs wanted. There was probably a broad that got a little cocky, a little out of line. She tried to order for herself one night, like, I think I'll have the pot roast. And some guy was like, God damn it, Sally, shit! What the just happened? You've humiliated me now! From the waiter and God knows who else heard, Sally. Come to think of it, how have you even gotten outside? You definitely should not be sitting in front of me right now. Ordering for yourself is an opinion, and you'll be thrashed severely for this shit, Sally. So we would play this game, me and Caitlin. We would watch those films, and we would play this game, and she would be the boss, and I'd be the secretary. Her name was Harry Company, which sounds a lot like a porn name, and my name was Chrissy Tinkers. And she would go, here's how our game would go. She would go, Chrissy, get me my briefs. We just thought that's what men needed. They needed their briefs. And I'd be like, all right, Mr. Company, I'm doing the best I can. And then she would put this pile of papers on her dad's desk. He had no idea we were playing this weird horror game in his office. And then I go pick up the papers. That was Chrissy Tinker's only responsibility. And I bring them over to Mr. Company, and I'd always drop them. And she'd be like, God damn it, shit! We had an abusive relationship. And I'd lean down and be like, I'm sorry, Mr. Company. And then I'd start to collect the papers, and she would lift my chin up, and she'd be like, Chrissy, I'm sorry that we've quarreled. She'd be like, I know you're very dumb, and you're doing the best you can. And then she would try to kiss me, and I'd be like, Mr. Company. And then she would just throw me on the couch and start humping me. Thank you. And I'd be like, no, Mr. Company, no. And she would go, no means yes, Chrissy. So it was a rape game. We played a rape game. Every week, she would rape the bejesus out of me. Until she told on us. She was a little cock blocker. She told her mom. She was a little cock blocking snitch, I'm afraid. And her mom told my mom, and it was this big scandal at our school, and our teachers were notified that we were humping and we needed help. Of course, I got blamed for it. You know, like it's the slovenly kid's idea. It was her idea. I mean, I wanted it, but it was her idea. So we weren't allowed to play for a while. We were given like a serious like probation period for humping, and then finally, we had another sleepover, but her mom came over and both mothers sat us down and they gave us this very serious anti-humping speech before we went to bed. Her mom kept going, don't you play that vulgar game, girls. Christ will know, and Christ is watching. I'm like, that doesn't mean shit to me. It actually sounds kind of hot. Invite him up. So we went to bed. We got right to humping. We had little time to waste. We were really backed up, so. But we were trying to hump quietly. Like, we understood that the stakes were high, and, but she got too excited during the rape part. She just started screaming, and she's like, no means yes! I'm like, shut up, bitch! And then, of course, we woke my mom up. You know, she was, like, on alert. She comes busting in her turquoise Navajo robe. We were just so caught. We were mid-hump, like, yeah. Oops-a-daisy. And I tried to lie, but I was an awful liar. I was like, Mom, it's a Barbie game. Just get out. It's a Barbie game. The Barbies were nowhere in sight. They were safely tucked away. It was just the two of us aggressively humping each other. My mom goes, oh, please, Rachel, I lived in California in the 1960s. You know what my worst fear is with, like, men and meeting the right person? I'm afraid that, like, you know in the movies, whenever a woman will finally leave some animal that's been abusing her, they always have her end up with a soft, bearded theater teacher? I think that's my worst fear in life. That I'm just gonna get real tired. I'll end up with some guy that wears a lot of corduroy and mock turtlenecks. And like a lot of beaded jewelry. There's nothing that grosses me out more than a man with a necklace on with some sort of a story behind it. No one wants to see your amulet and hear about the strength it gives you. It's disgusting. I'm afraid of ending up with just some bearded man named Richard. He just speaks in like a therapist whisper, like, hi, my name's Richard. I don't like to be called Rick. I prefer Richard. I feel like Richard wouldn't even have a man's body. He'd just take off his clothes and there'd be like a calming smear that I'm forced to have sex with. Richard would have the body of a melting candle. And he would do the opposite of talking dirty. I feel like Richard would just interrupt sex to touch base a lot. He'd be in the middle of sex and he would just stop like, hey there, hey.
How's it feeling over there, huh? Just wanted to see how everything was going over there in your court, huh? Well, maybe we could stop here and process what's happened so far. Take a little break and have some soup. Would you like that?
There'd be a lot of unnecessary soothing during sex with Richard. You just stop and be like, shh,
Shh, shh, you're safe. You're safe. Shh, 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 you're safe.
a lot of face raking. Shh. I feel like Richard's idea of talking dirty would be like,
I don't think we're doing enough to protect our national parks. What do you think, huh? You little slut? You like that? Yeah? Yeah? You want me to ram you, huh? You want to get rammed with unconditional love? That's what I'd like to ram into you, a nice support system. Do you mind if I sing This Land Is Your Land while I'm inside you? I'm a bit of a male feminist, and I don't believe in erections, so tell you what I'm gonna do. I think they're pretty aggressive, and they're not gonna happen here. No erections, not on my watch. I'm just gonna fold it in half and put it in that way.
oh. Why would he fold it in half? That is a strange joke. Why would a man fold his flaccid penis in half? It's okay to feel strange during that joke. The other thing about like starting a new relationship that's overwhelming is there's so many awkward things that can happen when you first hook up with somebody. You know, I think that's sometimes just why I stay with the last person. Just to start over again is so overwhelming. Like, first of all, this last guy that I was with, we left the TV on the first time we hooked up, which is a bad idea because something really humiliating can come on and you'll be in the heavy stages of the hookup and you can't just stop and address it, you know? Like, we're in the middle of hooking up and this infomercial about some sort of a penis-enhancing drug came on. It was so horrifying. And it just kept going on and on because it was an infomercial. It was just preying on every man's worst fears. It was just like these hot, greased Russian whores talking about how they could not find a large enough to satisfy them and how they'd search the lands. It's just these like hot, greased skanks out at the discotheque like, I'm sorry, Vlad, but I need a man with a very massive penis, okay? We tell the men we doesn't care about size and rah, but I mean, it's complete bullshit. Am I right, ladies? I didn't leave breadline in my country to come over here for some sort of a mediocre pencil. I'm sorry, ladies. Natasha, remember when you meet your husband on the internet after he purchased you for 27 Louis Vuitton original handbag? And you come over here and I'm sorry, medium penis, not so big, get out of town, am I right, ladies, huh? When I meet my boyfriend after I am trolling for men with American Express black card in VIP nightclub section, and I see that he does not have horse snaking down his leg, I'm pretty pissed off, huh? I went out with this guy recently. He wasn't a douche, but he was a tool. I feel like there's an important difference. I think a douche is way worse than a tool. Like a douche is like some guy named Chad and his parents have a lake house and he likes to girls there side by side next to his best friend Tucker and they high five while they're him, you know, like. But I feel like a tool is not as bad as a douche. Like if you could read a transcript of a douche's thoughts, you'd be furious by the time it was over, you know? But a tool's thoughts would just be more mild and oblivious. Like a tool would just kind of be like, nah. Game 7, I like to wear socks and flip-flops.
I wear my shorts all year round because I'm an individual. Where are my sunglasses? Oh yeah, they're on the back of my neck.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
House lights go.
Copy that.
Tonight